can't tell. I just can't. Yeah. Is this one on? Hello. Yes. Lovely. All right. Welcome back. Before we have our next talk, I just wanted to mention and kind of announce or re-announce something that you will have seen in your program book, which is that next year's RailsConf Europe is going to be produced in Berlin by Ruby Central and O'Reilly Media. And I wanted to introduce to you Gina Blaber, the Director of Conferences for O'Reilly, who will say a couple of words about our plans.
Hi. First of all, I just wanted to say I think Wendy DeVolder and the Skills Matter people and David have done a great job this year. Don't you agree? So we're thrilled to be doing this next year with David, and just wanted to say we're looking for feedback on things you'd like to see there next year, both in the program and the event itself. So please feel free to come and find me and give me your thoughts. My email is gina@o'reilly.com. Send me some thoughts via email. We're going to do a 3-day event next year. It'll be 1 day of workshops and then 2 days of plenaries and sessions. So hope to see you there. Thanks.
Where is he still here? Yeah, oh, there he is. All right, I take great pleasure in introducing a fellow Rubyist who, among other things, is the author of the YAML API for Ruby. I think rather important fact that sometimes gets overshadowed by some of his rather considerable artistic and literary efforts. He's also the creator of the Try Ruby sandbox, which allows you to try Ruby online, as well as the author of the Poignant Guide to Ruby, and an artist and musician who's done a lot in and around our community for a long time. And I'm happy to introduce Y the Lucky Stiff.
Great. How's everybody doing? If the ladies would please remove their hats just to show respect. Gents, your mustaches, please. Thank you, David. Wonderful. Everything's perfect here. So, Ruby is to code Ruby is really to love, to feel passion, to feel pleasure. It stirs you inside so greatly, and it's such a beautiful language, almost erotic, I would say. Method calls stripped, undressed of their parentheses, chaining them together, raw like that. I mean, just the red, ebullient jewel, Wow, all right. But I mean, I think Mats would hate to hear somebody talk about the language like that, and he would say that I dishonored my commit bit, so I don't want to go off on that anymore. But you get the idea. Ruby is a special and beautiful sort of potion, When I walk down the streets and I look into people's eyes, I can see their excitement about learning Rails. I can see that they know David Hennemeyer Hansen, that they want to be him. They want his fine apparel and his ways, They're there's a rushing out in the streets to get here, and that's pretty cool. I mean, that's really exciting. But it seems like this is the sort of thing that we need to start administering to our children for their health. It's the sort of thing that you just can't be whole without, really, right? Yeah, it's crazy. It's intense. So, one of the ways that I've been messing with Ruby is with cartoons and stuff. And there's a science behind this. I mean, this isn't like this is incredibly thought out. I mean, in isolation and wow, foxes, of all animals. And there's so many different parts to these that you can't see. These are the foxes that I use inside my books that I'm working on, and it's sort of a reactionary work to try and do everything that a technical book shouldn't do. I'll get emails from people that say, your book's annoying, or it's too long-winded, and I wish I could read it, but I can't. I'll get an email that says, I usually from Europe. I dislike your book, and I think it goes on and on. Are you doing one about Rails? The eyes of the foxes, round and blank. There's nothing there, right? So what do you have to hold on to in a technical book? I mean, what drives you to read it exactly? I mean, is there a personality there? Is there any sort of, I don't know, is there anything? Is there feeling? Is there humanism in or humanity in a technical manual? Not really. There shouldn't be. The eyes should be blank. They should be staring straight ahead, pouring through pages and pages, reference material. You got to get this down. You cannot blink. As the foxes, they never blink in the book, and that's an allegory of you. If they stare, you stare back. It helps keep you focused. Look at all this new ground that's being broken, just circles. Okay, the shape of the foxes, right? Yeah, just pointy. Very sparse. 2 points on top and a point on the side, asymmetrical. Wow, crazy. This is the one I like. Because you can't ever see anything about him, really. He's always down there at the bottom. You can't ever get to him, really. And that's supposed to be sort of frustrating. I mean, I know that I don't have incredible things to teach in the book. I mean, I'm not an incredible programmer or anything like that. I don't have any experience or anything. But I figure people will keep reading maybe to see a little bit more of the short one, because maybe there's something down there. There's always something down there. But in this case, is there something down there? Yeah, probably. Okay, for a moment we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite operators, the splat operator, right? And it sort of looks like a little crushed starling. A little sort of asterisk. No, an asterisk, yeah. And what's the splat used for? Come on.
To break things.
It's what? To break things up? That's good. Yeah, exactly. It's sort of a softener, or something. Any other input on this? Okay. So an example of how to use the splat. Right. Okay. So you've got a list of items, right? And maybe, there are more efficient ways to add arrays together, but I just, my handwriting was getting too long, so I kind of had to squish it down. So, if you were going to add into an array, you can use the splat to break things up so that they end up being method arguments. I mean, that's what you use it all the time, right? Pretty frequently. When it's needed, not unnecessarily, of course. And it's beautiful, and it causes joy, and it makes you, as a programmer, at your happiest. Okay, here's a nice trick though, because Splat has some secret places. It has so many little secret spots that you forget about. For example, let's say we have this list down here that's a file that's got lines in it: dog, bog, swampy log, dog. What we can do is use, and IO read is the same as file read, so we'll load this list text file. I kind of wish that we could do handwritten Ruby, because you can do line wraps in really cool places then. I think you add some of the artistry there. Okay, so what the splat will do in this case is it'll split this by new line, right? And stuff it all in the array. So, and I could even do just array equals splat read, and then you've got that whole file inside of a list.
Here, it smells good.
It's fun. Okay, this is a great one. So if you've got then your list of items, you can use it in a when statement to say is whatever's in food, for example, dog. Is dog in the list items? And there's actually been an RCR to change Ruby so that there will be an in operator, like if food in items, So it would, the if statement would pass if the food was in the list items. Well, this is, actually pretty succinct as well. And the case statement's just full of all kinds of stuff like this. I'll show you another one. Okay, so this was one from the Builder library, right, that just came in perfect.
The countdown begins.
Oh? Magic. Magic abounds. Creepers everywhere. Okay, so here's 4 items in a list. We've got, and what this is doing is in the library is trying to find out what valid what valid bytes are there, so that it can it can replace those bytes. So these are all the valid ranges. These 3 down here, and then the top one is we also allow these characters. It's like the tab and the.
I swear to God, when I get home, this is what I do.
Anyway,
It's just so nice.
so this was the algorithm that was used. Jim, you're good, okay? This isn't any criticism. It's totally fun, it's evolution. So we check the valid list and loop it, and check each one of these for this character, okay? So if it's found in any of these lists, then the if statement passes.
I don't like how nice it is. I don't want to hear the radio. I want to hear TV. Do you move it down? Yeah.
So the switch around with the when is, you can just go case character when it's in this list and splat the list. Because what the cooperation between the when and the splat is just super fun, because the splat will make sure that the when checks each of these items and ranges in a when. Also, so if the character is within a range, the when will count that as true, because when doesn't use a double equals, it uses a triple equals. So normally you would expect character with a hexadecimal value of 20 doesn't actually equal the range, but it does meet the criteria of the range, so the when lets it pass. I mean, I love what Matt's did to the switch statement. I really thought it was useless. Okay. What does this do? Don't look at your consoles. Any guesses? Huh? So it'll return 0? No trouble. It's a weird. Who uses this really? 0 to A. It's just right, exactly. It returns an array with 0 in it, and also, what is it? And also a warning. Default 2A will be obsolete. Your ways are so, traditional, old-fashioned. How quaint. What about this? What does that do?
Really, really nice too. Yeah. Gives money back.
You just laugh. You have to give me an answer. Okay.
So annoying. Yo, what's up? This is Lava.
Right. It returns an array with 0 in it, but no warning. Why not? I mean, isn't that the same thing, right? Doesn't a splat just convert to an array? Yeah. It's less obsolete. For whatever reason, the splat is, and actually, over time, things have evolved more towards the splat operator. Because it's consistent throughout Ruby. That you'll continue to be able to use that for assignment and passing into methods and things like that. It is becoming the common way to cast to an array really obscure things. So, sometimes you'll use object.blank in your code. Do you guys use that at all? Sometimes to check if something's maybe nil or maybe 0 or maybe. This is sort of like also if you're not sure whether you're getting back nil or a list, and you should probably be sure, I guess. But I don't know. If you're going quick and you're having a good time, then use splat. Matt's invented it for you. For your happiness and for your joy. Okay, so here's a pluralism, right? Right? So, and I still use this, right? It's not that bad. It uses globals, but they're local globals, in Ruby. They're not global globals, they're local globals for local people. We'll have no trouble here. So we checked with the regex here, and if it passes, throw the first match in a string or the second match. But there's still something so not Ruby about that, right? So we try to use match, right? But still you kind of get stuck in the same place. It's the same thing as that way the equals, right? You still kind of get stuck in the same, except that match returns a match data. But match data are so frustrating, because they're not really an array. I don't know. I'm just not used to them. Does anybody else feel that weirdness about match data sometimes? Am I right? Okay, so a double splat. Why not, I've been using this lately just because it's so decorative, You've got like 2 little lily pads there hanging out in the mulch and everything. So basically, okay, so we match the regex, and we splat it back so that the M contains whether it matched or not, basically. Or it would contain the full string if it matched or nil. And then sub contains all of the, I don't know why I called it sub, because sub is substitution. It's, but whatever. It contains all of your matches. So what you can do actually is after this block, then do if m, and then use your subs. It feels kind of nice, I don't know. It's not astonishing or anything like that. It wasn't worth your $500 or quit or whatever. But, it's fun. Okay, so maths is really cool, right? I mean, he's so unruffled, you know? I mean, when we talk about Rubyists being nice, we're talking about Mats, right? I mean, we're talking about a lot of people, but we're talking about Mats, right? I mean, he sort of sets the whole, he sets the whole deal up. Have you anybody here on Ruby Talk or have read it for very long? Yeah, David. David's like an astonishing. He's all over the place in there. So, if you've been on Ruby Talk for a while, you know that not every Rubyist is nice, you know. I mean, you know that Rubyists are pretty, we have battles. We wage, Knights of the Realm, we wage battles. So, a classic time that I remember is Ilias Lazardis, right? Does anybody remember this guy? Out of control. So, he's terrorized every programming community around, right? Ilias, are you here? He's not here. I wouldn't be able to be up here talking if he was here. He's sort of like a man dressed in junk who comes out on the Capitol steps and, proclaims that he's taken over and sort of like, So he gets on Ruby Talk and starts talking about his plans to reshape Ruby, right? And all of his message posts are sort of titled they're all coded with his own special internal code for his organization, right? So like E1, E01 dash, and then his topic in all capital letters, right? E01 evaluation, Ruby's, ongoing object hierarchy, or something like that, right? There was some issue with Ruby's object hierarchy. I don't recall exactly what it was. But it wasn't all nice, and I have no idea. Anyway, that's, people sort of poked at Ilias for a while, and then after a few weeks of just ranting and ranting and ranting, there was a post that was titled E10, Ruby's biggest weakness, Mr. Yukihiro Matsumoto. On the guy's list saying, how can you say that the creator of a language is its biggest weakness? That's so amazing. I have to admire him, He was unabashed by anyone's attempts to thwart him. He'd made it to the castle gates, He raised his sword in agony and justice and called it as it was, He called it as it exactly wasn't. But, it was kind of funny because Mats replied to the thread after that, and Ilias had all these claims about sort of how Mats is, he wasn't really listening to people. There's a translation thing there, and we all, that's something that you sort of deal with in the community, but it's also great, because, part of the reason that Ruby is the way that it is because of, some of the struggles and just the whole process. Anyway, Mats responded with a short email that just said, my personality really seems like it's kind of off topic, which was sort of like a nice way of just, I really like that. Did you guys ever see, is anybody here subscribed to the FreeBSD ports list? There was a great guy on that list who did the portsDB program, and one day he decided he would just stop working on portsDB, and have you used portsDB? Okay. Do you find it essential? Absolutely. Okay, yeah, it's great. It's great. So, and port upgrade and all those tools, Good time. Oh, okay. Yeah. So the portsDB guy got on and said, I'm done doing portsDB, and he said it was because he hasn't been able to enjoy meat, sex, and life as much since he started doing portsDB. It's a great email. If you want to give me your address, I'll forward it to you again. But it's on the FreeBSD ports list. It was probably about 2.5 years ago, and I thought it was so cool. It had sort of a religious. I don't know exactly what the deal. There was some sort of a religious tone there, but also it was sort of I don't know. I feel like programming enhances my life in some ways, like the meat does taste a little bit better. But, so it's kind of interesting to hear somebody else's point of view, like, oh, this, this sausage is disgusting, get this out of my sight. It's because he's been cataloging, dealing with little DVs all day. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of magic. A lot of magic. Okay, this is so exciting. Oh man, this is like great. Okay, so we've got, have you ever done this, right? Tried to do this? You open a module and you require something into it and you expect it to be inside that module's namespace when you're first learning Ruby at all. Or either require or load, Like you'll have a bunch of, models. I know that you can't actually do app models in Rails, but, let's say you wanted to require something from, let's say you had two apps that had user classes, right? Okay? That's reasonable. And you wanted to transfer information between the two of them. You wanted to load them together. You might want to load them into little, little modules, right? So, no. No. Some error comes up like, no such, that constant doesn't live here. And if you hit, models instead, it will have loaded into the top level instead. And there are good reasons for that, because if you load, a URI class inside of, inside of a module, all your classes are going to share like the same libraries, net-HTTP and different things, and so there has to be a top level that it can assign, it can get addresses to things, It can't just keep ducking its head down all these corners, Otherwise, slowness, right? Duck typing, lookups. I mean, how are you going to do anything with a language like that? Anybody working on Wasabi for Ruby? Because, allegedly it has multi-line strings. No. Jest. Okay, so this is an extension I've been working on lately, right? And it's for you guys. It's totally for you guys. If you want it. If you don't want it, then unrequited love sort of thing is fine, But I did it for you. No, I mean, I'm wasting. I don't know. Let's see. So here's what you do with the sandbox extension. You have to require sandbox right now, okay? But you'll create sandbox new in the hotel, right? Ta-da! Hotel load appmodules.rb. That file will get loaded into the hotel sandbox. Then we can eval inside of hotel. Eval is actually so good in the sandbox. It's not at all evil. It's perfect. It's how it should be. You can cut it off from doing all sorts of dangerous things, and I mean, it's still parsing and stuff like that, but, the string is a protectant there. It keeps things from seeping in, I mean, it keeps you from mixing things. So, we eval model here, and we see that the model is loaded, and then we type model at the top level, and it's not found, That's great. So you can sort of create this little explode-proof shell to load stuff into and blow the bomb in there and keep it inside, and the smoke clears, and you'll see that you've got, the scorpion and the little jeweled necklace that you made and everything inside that little bubble, and it's perfect. It didn't taint any of the rest of the things that you're trying to do that are... Okay, so let's say we have this, these Rails folders, right? Okay, so I'm using the example of Rick Olson's form that he wrote called Beast is in one folder with the Rails logo on it. Kevin Clark's R ticket is in another folder, and it's noted. And then we've got logs, which is just sort of accumulating our mongrel logs, right? Okay, so 2 Rails apps and another folder here. Okay, it looks inside the Beast folder and finds that there's a config environment.rb in there. what I'm referring to here isn't just Sandbox. This is a layer on top of Sandbox for Rails that's just, actually it's just a modified mongrel Rails that I'm using. So that when you run it in that top level folder, it will scan those folders for environment.rb files here. And if it finds them, all this, lightning goes off and excitement. And it will replace in each of those the URL root, so that now beast answers to /beast, rticket answers to /rticket, and logs is just, it ignores that because it doesn't contain any Rails stuff. And if there's a better way to do this, you guys, let's get together and boogie. Okay, so then in the browser, we look at localhost beast, and the forum comes up okay. And in fact, I can show you we'll try a short demonstration here. If you'll give me just a moment. Okay, so I'll head over to my, nope, not there. There we go. Okay, so I've got 3 folders in there. Actually, with this, what I ended up doing was I have beast and typo in here.
Slide the terminal over.
Oh, let me see. Is that a little bit better? It's okay if you can't really see everything that's going on. I'll dictate to you, or let's reverse. Okay, so yeah, basically what's going on here is this loads Ruby gems, and then loads mongrel. We only need mongrel to be outside the sandbox, okay? It's going to push stuff to the 2 Rails applications. So it's in the main Ruby interpreter is what it is, okay? Wow, this is a small font. So anyway, a bunch of great stuff here. Okay, so right here, it scans the beast directory and mounts it at /beast. It actually will load Ruby gems again, because one of the things about the sandbox is it's a complete, at least for now, they're completely fresh interpreters that you're allocated. Everything is started over. In fact, I have to start over, boot the meta class, the object and module and class. I have to recreate all those from scratch, and there's a whole bunch of code in there that basically lets you whitelist anything from Ruby. So you can say, oh, I want this, but I don't want I/O. I don't want the user to have access to, to directories and process stuff. Threads you can't even. No, threads we allow now because there's been some hacking on that recently. So threads can be allowed, but they can be disabled. So here beast is loaded along with Ruby gems, and here typo is loaded, and then here is where mongrel starts on port 3000. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so, and I know, okay, so beast comes up on /beast. Oh, we went haywire. What's that? Yeah. Maybe I knocked this a little bit. I don't know. So much for magic. Okay, so what happens is, right? /beast right there. Okay? Feast your eyes on the wonder of. What do you think? I mean, 2 Rails apps in the same... Has that happened before? 2 Rails apps? Please say no. Never in the recorded history of man. Yours. So, yeah. So Mats has given me okay, and when I get the first chance, we're going to, apply the patches to 1.8 and head. So this should be in the next 1.8 release. And what exactly does this mean? What does this mean for you? I mean, probably if you're just doing, plain, if you're deploying your apps yourself, I mean, it probably doesn't mean a whole lot. But what it does open up the possibility for is ease of just playing around with Rails apps. I mean, if you want to download a forum and some ticket software and whatever and just throw a tarball in a directory, that's what we're looking at here, is just like, you throw those tarballs in a directory and the web server mounts them, in your own little playground there. So that's kind of exciting and fun, And the same thing is, we're going to do the same thing with camping. It's going to be mounted alongside, so you can ride little apps, little Rails-ish apps. Not quite, but yeah, they'll be all together like that. So, yeah.
You change frequency, so it's obviously the output. What you were before was low resolution.
Oh, did it switch res?
Possibly. You see, you're back there normally now, but as soon as you switch to that, you can't handle the resolution.
Oh, I see. Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you. How adept. How gallant. Okay, right. Sandbox has its own object module class definitions. If you type object.objectID in the sandbox, the ID will be totally different than if you type object.objectID in the main Ruby interpreter. I mean, these are clean, and it's great for doing stuff like try Ruby, or you want to do like a scriptable wiki for your users, or you want to do some sort of templating in your CMS, but you don't want people to be able to, F*** with your stuff. So safe sandbox, no IO or environment or threads in the safe. So whereas there's sandbox.new, there's also a sandbox.safe, which is sort of my recipe for a very, very safe, restricted sandbox. You can still do things like math, and I've had to replace like math, some of the math functions that you could do DOS attacks with. So some of the stuff isn't as fast, but it's safe, that's the goal. The last thing is that if you're going to use the sandbox, it has to be loaded first before anything else. If you load it before Ruby Gem or after Ruby Gems, then you're kind of messed up. So it actually has to be installed on its own, because what it'll do is it looks to the main Ruby interpreter to copy over all the methods and get all of its junk from. And since Ruby Gems replaces require, you'll copy the require, but you won't copy gem original require, which is the original require. So you're stuck with sort of like, I think you can load other gems. I don't know. I can't remember exactly what this... You're in a bind. You're just in a bind. So yeah, thank you for having me, and it looks like you're having a good time. Does anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
Does it open the possibility of having 2 separate versions of the same library?
It does, totally. Yeah, I've been doing that with some of my library testing just to... What's that?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah. The question was, can you load multiple libraries at the same time? And the answer is, yeah, you can, I mean, it's a full Ruby interpreter, so, like I've been loading multiple versions of Apricot, and I've never even said that aloud before. And you can, that's fun. Anyway, yeah.
Have you tried it with JRuby?
No, I haven't converted it over yet. It's still sort of unstable. So his question was, have I converted try Ruby before, right? Yeah, and I haven't gotten to it yet. Sort of lazy.
What's the footprint like for, I can use this. What's the footprint like? So if you're running like 5 Rails applications, and it's using one Mongrel instance in that particular instance, Like, is it more or less? Or?
It's going to be, yeah, it's going to be double, basically. I mean, I think that there might be a way that we can use I can use some proxying to get around that. I don't know.
For dev boxes, that'd be awesome.
What's that?
For dev boxes? Like, sometimes I'm running like 6 different things on a dev box.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that as time goes on, I haven't done any optimization because whenever I optimize, the thing horribly breaks. So I figured let's get it down to a science and then figure out some tricks. I don't know, it's unexplored for me. So if anybody has experience with it, I could really use some help, concocting some wicked plans. Yes, sir. In the blue.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. I just wanted to ask if there's any scope or reason for wanting to come up with some kind of proxy in the top-level interpreter which would be able to arbitrate between the application instances if you needed to be able to do that.
Right, yeah. I mean, I've been thinking about that because for the safe sandbox, no way. I mean, once you get a hookup to the main, then you can eval your way around to all sorts of other things. So it has to be sealed off nice But for for the normal sandboxes, I think, like right now you can use an import directive, sort of like I had sandbox.load. You can also import a class, and it will just, if it's an unsafe sandbox, just throw the whole class in there, and then try and patch up the ends, where it says, oh, okay, this points to module. It's unpredictable, of course, but, I mean, that's kind of fun. Yeah.
Can you still use regexes in the sandbox?
Yeah, sure.
Because that's another DOS avenue.
Okay, yeah, that's true. If you had like a match that went on and on forever. You could disable it. I mean, I don't know. Looks like we're going to have to recode it in plain Ruby. Dear me. Thanks for the bad news. No, thank you for that idea. I hadn't even thought of it. That's great. All right, well, I think I'm good. David? Great, thank you. Congratulations on all the changes. And you're doing super work. Super just...
Cool. Well, I mean, this is really a lot like the multi-VM support kind of stuff that we have here.
Yeah.
Basically, you can just spin up another runtime and just an object in memory. So.
Yeah, totally.
Look and make sure that we can...
Thanks for all your help. Invaluable.
We'll get the sandbox stuff to work across all of